Hello and welcome to this POCACITO webinar. My name is Max Grunig. I'm the president of Ecologic Institute and we're running the POCACITO program. POCACITO stands for Post-Carbon Cities of Tomorrow, and we bring together people from various cities in the US, including in particular our 6 POCACITO cities where we went last year with participants from Europe, experts from Europe. We went to, well, Detroit, of course. We went to Minneapolis, Memphis. We went to Las Vegas. We went to Houston and Denver. And today, I'm very, very glad that we have already the 3rd webinar of 2017 here today, presenting 2 esteemed colleagues. I dare to say colleagues from Detroit. From Detroit is working for environmental justice. We have here with us today Kimberly Hill-Knott and Leila Mekias, both from Detroit, obviously, and they're working on climate change adaptation planning in Detroit. And I'm very, very grateful for both of you that you join us here today, that you present on both on the work of your organization, the work that you're doing there currently, and also a little bit showing the history, the iteration of it. I don't know that much about it yet myself either, even though I've been there last year in September. And it's definitely very exciting because we all know that climate change adaptation is something all cities have to face, be it in the United States, in Europe, or elsewhere in the world. And cities do it differently, obviously. They have different resources, and we all know that Detroit and financial resources, that's a particular challenge. Also, I've seen in your introductory information that this process has already been going on for quite a while, since 2011. And so it's not something recent that you just came up with last year, but it's a real process. It's very participatory, it's very exciting, and it's very dynamic. So thank you for joining us here today. And well, I'll give you the floor right away. I want to say just for the participants real quick, so you will notice that you're all muted at the moment and can't really speak right away. Don't worry, we'll have a Q&A session later after the presentation, and we'll open the microphones. You can either send us a question in the questions box. You can also post your question in the chat box, or you can raise your hand. So these are 3 ways how to signal that you would like to ask a question. And we'll make sure that all your questions can be asked and then also answered, of course. And final information, so we always try to keep these lunch presentations, of course, depending on where you are in the world. For some, it's already dinner time. We keep that to under 60 minutes, definitely ending before the hour. And with that in mind, I now will have to be quiet myself and hand over to Leila and Kimberly, who will present now, and we'll be back after the presentation for the Q&A. Thank you, both of you, and here's your floor. Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, if you just share your screen, there you go, and start your presentation, then it should work. Great.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us. We are honored to be here and really appreciate POCACITO for having us share our story and our journey of our collaborative planning process around climate change. Okay, So you will be hearing from myself, Kimberly Hill-Nod. I am the Director of Policy at Detroiters Working for Environmental Justice and the Project Director for the Detroit Climate Action Collaborative. You will also hear from Layla Mekias, who is the Program Coordinator at Detroiters Working for Environmental Justice and has done a wonderful job working on our youth program, which you'll hear a little bit more about shortly. So we're going to talk about who we are, the definition of environmental justice, what the Detroit Climate Action Collaborative is, some of our goals, our greenhouse gas inventory, and what we've been doing over these past few years. So
Kimberly,
the mission of Detroiters...
Sorry, one question. I think we all see your webinar control panel somehow in the slideshow. If you or Layla could just minimize that and push that out of the screen a little bit. I'm not sure why that is, but it's definitely covering up parts of your slideshow. Yeah, very good. Now it's perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, sure. Okay, so the mission of Detroiters Working for Environmental Justice envisions Detroit as the global model of a vibrant urban center where all thrive in environmental, economic, and social health. Our vision is that we champion local and national collaboration to advance environmental justice and sustainable redevelopment. We foster clean, healthy, and safe communities through innovative policy, education, and workforce initiatives. And we believe that that's important. The reason that I wanted to start with our vision and our mission, because that is really what drives our work and the reason that we decided to launch the Climate Collaborative in the first place. But the basis of our work and what we're always mindful of is the definition of environmental justice. And so I'm not going to read through all of this, but you can actually see what it is. And we believe that it's really a social justice grassroots movement that seeks to protect communities of color that have been historically overburdened with pollution. And so you get into cumulative impact, you get into hot spots, and you really get into a lot of racial issues when you talk about the location of a lot of these facilities, high polluting facilities. And so our contention is that, clean air is a human right, and it should not be based on your race, nor your class, nor your geographical location. But too many times we know that that is not the case. So DWEJ was established in 1994, and we have been a leading voice in advocating for safe communities and sustainable communities. And so we have also over the years been addressing many of the factors that lead to climate change, which have understandably adversely impacted low-income and minority communities. So in 2011, DWEJ convened key stakeholders from diverse backgrounds, and in 2012 we launched the Detroit Climate Action Collaborative. So what we realized, I want to put a kind of a footnote right here, the city of Detroit was going through very turbulent times. They were threatening the appointment of an emergency manager and threatening, and bankruptcy was hanging over our head. Unfortunately, both of those things happened. We did receive an emergency manager, and we are the first major urban center to actually go through a bankruptcy. And so in the midst of all this, we said, does it really make sense for us to forge ahead with launching a climate action plan when there's so many other pressing issues confronting the city of Detroit, a post-industrial city, legacy city? And so our contention, after looking at many of the environmental challenges and economic challenges in the city of Detroit, we said that we had no other choice but to. And so we took a very kind of a brave journey and made a brave decision, I should say, to look at climate change, because we believe that within the context of environmental justice, that you really cannot talk about environmental justice without talking about economic justice. And we thought that climate change, addressing effectively and comprehensively addressing climate change, had both the opportunity to improve the quality of life in terms of health, but also in terms of economics, which we'll talk about a little later. All right, so our goals, primary goals, are to reduce the greenhouse gases in the city of Detroit, which will inevitably improve the well-being of Detroiters, as well as increasing the resilience of the city's social, built, and natural environment. So, basically our plan is to develop a climate action plan and really develop comprehensive strategies for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and identify approaches that are unique to Detroit, while also creating a roadmap to reduce greenhouse gases at both the community and municipal levels, and vet these strategies through a strong community engagement process. So when we talk about making sure that we have the most kind of inclusive recommendations and recommendations that are reflective, I should say, of various sectors of the community, we put together a research team. And our research team actually combed through climate action plans from across the country. And when looking at those plans, we wanted to see what we could borrow for the city of Detroit, so we would not have to reinvent the wheel. So one of the things that we did is we decided to develop several work groups. And so we brought issue experts together from throughout the state of Michigan to develop adaptation and mitigation goals, as well as short-term and long-term action steps. I should mention that because we are an urban center, we do not have the option of only focusing on adaptation. Strong climate action programs in urban centers must focus both on adaptation and mitigation. If we don't deal with mitigation, we will never effectively deal with adaptation because of all of the polluting, just all of the factors that contribute to climate change in our communities. So we've had several sector meetings. On this slide, you'll see we've talked about climate change in the upper left-hand corner. The first picture, you'll see a group of people, and these are R&B and hip-hop artists that came to the city of Detroit to learn about environmental justice and climate change. And later that evening, we had a roundtable discussion or panel discussion at Wayne State University, and it was really cool to hear these celebrities talk about the importance of addressing climate change. The next picture is artwork, and that was a wonderful program, which we'll have Layla talk a little bit more about, but that's another sector that we worked with, and that is our young people. The picture to the right is where we actually hosted former EPA Administrator Gina McCarthy, and boy, do we miss her. So I'm sure a few of you are chuckling. But that was a wonderful meeting where we actually brought together different stakeholders from around the state, again, to talk about, but primarily Detroit, to talk about environmental justice issues in the city of Detroit. So if you go further down, the picture on the left is our business sector meter, our business sector meter, and then you have the picture next to it are all of the people who were at the sector meter. So we actually had quite a few people. And then the last picture on the right is, in the bottom right-hand corner, is bottom right-hand corner is our community meeting. So this is where we brought various people together from different parts of the city of Detroit to talk about climate change and to really get their views about what a climate action plan should look like. Okay, and now I'm going to turn it to Layla Mekias, who will talk to you about our Youth Climate Summit.
Hello, everyone. Like Kim said, my name is Layla. I'm a program coordinator for DWEJ, and one of the areas in which I work here is the youth program. So our youth climate summits have been we launched in 2014, so we're in the middle of our third year of the program. Our overall goals are to educate about climate change locally and globally, to connect the students with representatives from green careers and education programs, to just make them aware and what are the career opportunities available in this field, and connect them with folks who can help them continue on in their education or their training to achieve a particular career or career path. Additionally, we facilitate or foster students' projects in their own neighborhoods and schools which relate to climate change and sustainability. We have from 100 to 200 participating high school students from 4 or 5 different schools each year. We recruit from Detroit public schools and also from some of the charters and things like that. We're continually working to try and expand our outreach and the number of students that participate. Additionally, we work with many partners across the city to make this happen, including other nonprofits like EcoWorks, who really are crucial in the student projects and have partnered with us this year to carry that forward and add a climate change element to the work that they're already doing in sustainability in the schools. Additionally, we work with Green Living Science, Detroit Public Schools, the United States Green Building Chapter or Council, Detroit Chapter, Michigan Science Center, Department of Energy, NOAA, etc. You can contact me for a full list, but that's just a look at just the range and number of partners that we work with to make this possible. So like I said, 2014 was our first year. In 2015, we were selected by the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy to participate in their youth summit programs globally related to COP21. So that was a very exciting year for us because we were not only able to actually send one of our students to Paris to participate in a side event, but we were able to add that global element to the work that we're doing in Detroit and just connect the students with students across the globe who are also working on these issues. For example, I believe there was a group from Paris, a group from South Africa, a group from Finland, and some others that I'm forgetting. And they all created these videos to be presented during the side event, including Detroit. And one of the teachers actually emailed me right after it was aired live, and just saying that her students were so excited watching it because they had seen themselves on the screen and just how special of an experience that was. And then this year is unique because we've added an element of workshops into the program. So we focused on energy, recycling, and food systems, and just took the students through a series of exercises to learn about how those issues relate to climate change and to sustainability in their neighborhoods. The thought behind that was that those same students will then be able to lead those workshops next year as we continue to work towards being more youth-driven in our leadership development aspects of this program. Additionally, they are working on projects in their neighborhoods that are related to these areas. So rain gardens would be just one example, but the work that they're doing is pretty exciting. Going forward, we're evolving the session so that the career session is a completely separate event. Ultimately, my goal would be to create a pipeline for these students from the summit to training programs, further education, jobs, etc. in the field. Additionally, we're working to bring youth into the planning process and just think how we can transform the overall youth summit to really just be driven, youth-driven. And I'm going to turn it back to Kimberly now.
Okay, so as you can see, we are very, very busy. So this is our just a list of our steering committee and work group chairs. So you'll see we have people from various sectors of the community that have committed to working with our efforts. One of the reasons that we are invited to speak all over the country and just to speak in different events and even in the city of Detroit is because of our diverse efforts or diverse partners in our collaborative planning process. So being the oldest environmental justice organization, we walked a very fine line with bringing businesses to our table. And we actually had some people that were who were upset with us because we crossed this line. But our contention is that, you know, we really had no other choice but to, because if businesses are going to be a part of the problem, we also believe that they have the responsibility to contribute to the solutions. And not only contribute in terms of sitting at a table with us to help develop these recommendations, but also contributing money. And so we invited them to the table, and it's been a very good partnership. It doesn't mean that it's a perfect partnership. It doesn't mean that there are not other things that we need. You know, we don't have any strong asks, because we do, but we not only have it of our business community, our business partners, but all of our partners who are on this sheet, on this page, and then even others who are not listed. And so now is really where the rubber meets the road, because of the ask that are coming as a result of their commitment to being part of this process. And the main ask is to lead by example in reducing their carbon footprint, but also being a good corporate neighbor and readily embracing the triple bottom line. That is especially true for our business partners. Within our other partners is really following through on the recommendations that have been set. Okay, so addressing climate change. So this is the city of Detroit. You'll see the weather extremities, and so you'll see extreme heat. We have a map. We have several maps that show our vulnerability to flooding and our vulnerability to heating, and they're based on several different factors, including the location of these various areas or various problem spots. And so the city of Detroit has been receiving more, having more and more floods, and that is because we have a combined sewer system, which further exacerbates the problem, in addition to the rain in the city of Detroit is becoming more and more intense. And so you're getting a lot of flooding, but you're also getting a lot of sewerage backup in the basements of people. The city of Detroit, the asthma rate is very, very high. In fact, in Wayne County, which is where the city of Detroit is located, it is 4 times higher for black children than it is for white children. I want to bring your attention really quickly to the picture, the upper right-hand corner, and that is 48217. The city of Detroit has 2 of the state's most polluted zip codes. 48217, where you see all the factories and the smoke coming out, is the most polluted zip code in the entire state. And so some of the lessons that we've learned is, you know, having an inclusive planning process is very, very important. It's important to have different voices at the table. It's important that we not only have grassroots, but we also have grass tops, because we're going to need ambassadors for the work that we're doing. It's also very important to have a good relationship with the mayor's office, to keep them involved, to keep the staff involved, and other key stakeholders. Making sure that people just understand, you know, how this issue impacts them. What I cannot stress enough is the importance of academic partners. We would not have been able to do our greenhouse gas inventory had it not been for the University of Michigan. We love them. They are our, I would say, our key academic partner and have done a lot of research for us that will be part of the Climate Action Plan. And so, you know, you'll see Homeland Security being familiar with projects that can really address climate change, which is green infrastructure and, of course, energy efficiency projects and other projects. So building strong community engagement is critically important. Our motto is from the bottom up by force. Because we didn't have time to wait on the city, we didn't have time to wait on the state, and neither did we have time to wait on the federal government to give us permission to start a climate action plan. So we did it. We just, you know, kind of led the charge and kind of counted the cost later. And so the community aspect is going to be very, very important if you're really serious about addressing climate change. One of the things that we've done in terms of the community is we have established a climate ambassador program. So it's called the Detroit Climate Ambassadors. And so, you know, we have all these sectors, but we knew that we could not have an effective plan without actively engaging the community. So these ambassadors, we meet the third Saturday of every month, and we talk about what climate change means to them. And now what we're doing is we're gearing the climate ambassadors up to actually go out in their neighborhoods and discuss what type of climate projects, small-scale climate-related projects they would like to do. Next month, we're planning to bring in someone to talk about fundraising. So how do we train community members to raise money for the projects that would really impact or benefit their respective communities? So what we did is we were thankful for Mayor Bloomberg's office in New York, who provided a lot of good advice, and it is really because of looking at New York, one of the reasons that we decided to do 2 greenhouse gas inventories, one at the municipal level and at the community level. We did both of these because we really needed to have buy-in from both areas, with the municipal being the most important because they have the ability to really garner additional support, including financial support. So one of the things that we did is that we convened a meeting with the mayor's office, and we brought together, the first time ever, we brought together all of the department directors of the major departments within city government. And our team from the University of Michigan actually introduced or presented the greenhouse gas inventory, the findings from the greenhouse gas inventory. And it was absolutely phenomenal. Many of them were shocked to find out how much emissions, how much greenhouse gases were being emitted. So anyway, you'll see community also, and it accounted for 89% of citywide emissions, which is 9.4 million tons, primarily came from buildings and facilities. But this is what I want to draw your attention to. I heard a pastor say that whenever there are great challenges, there are also great opportunities. Only 3% of our electricity was generated from other sources. And actually, this is kind of wrong the way it's stated, because the 3% was other sources, including renewable energy. So actually, the amount of renewable energy, the electricity that was generated from renewable energy is lower than that. And so that's where we see the opportunity being. In 2012, so our energy fuel mix primarily consisted of coal. 76% of our electricity was coal. So we also did a vulnerability assessment report, which was also done by the University of Michigan, and this was used as we're really looking at how to target our decisions and target our action steps. I put this in here because supportive policy is important. The way we designed our climate action plan is we wanted to make sure that no one entity could stop us from moving ahead. And so although we believe that policy is important, we also design the climate action plan without the need for policy. So we have a local policy, a climate ordinance that is being introduced right now. We're really, really excited about that. And we've actually partnered with another academic institution and a Great Lakes Law Center to write the legislation. And so that is in the process of being introduced right now. We've also been working with our colleagues throughout Michigan to promote clean energy. We have the Clean Power Plan. We've just heard that Pruitt is planning to pull out of or cancel the Clean Power Plan. We'll see what happens with that. And then federal legislation to support our work. And so this is some of the progress that we've been able to, that we have accomplished since 2011. So you can see that we've been very busy. You'll see our partners, and you'll see that we would not have been able to do it without the variety of partners that we've had. But I'm really proud of our Youth Climate Summit, our Climate Ambassador Program, and our Detroit Smart Neighborhood Program, which I'm going to have Layla talk about.
So the Smart Neighborhood Program is one of the programs that I'm also really excited about, and it originated in the Homes and Neighborhoods Working Group. And essentially what it is we recruit folks for our job training program, which is one of the areas that DWEJ works in. And we train them in energy auditing and home weatherization. It's an introductory course, and then from that point on, our goal then is to place them either in further training or in apprenticeship for on-the-job training. And the idea behind that is the on-the-job training is then focused on communities that experience high levels of energy poverty. They just pay a lot of money for their energy, higher than average, and it's a burden within the overall proportion of their income. They pay more. So obviously, home weatherization can help bring down those costs. And we also focus on neighborhoods that have high levels of greenhouse gas emissions, and in Detroit, because that is tied to industry and coal plants, there is a bit of a direct relationship there, though there would be anywhere where the power supplies the neighborhoods. That is a factor that makes those communities more vulnerable due to the poorer air quality. So in that way, we're trying to increase resilience as well. So we're in our second year of that program. The first year was a pilot. We trained 6 people. This year, our program has around 15 to 18 folks, and we're excited to expand out and actually be able to implement the second phase, which is the on-the-job training in one of the neighborhoods. So that's our goal for this year, is that everyone is placed either in that on-the-job training or into a specific community college course in one of the other directions, for example, solar or one of the trades or something like that, depending on what they prefer at the end of this training.
Okay, thank you, Layla. And so, excuse me. So we're really, really excited about that, and actually today they're actually going through their training. So we're also doing an economic analysis of the climate action plan. Okay, and so that ends our presentation. If there are any questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Kimberly. Thank you very much, Layla. That was very, very exciting, very interesting to hear both the variety of approaches that you combine there. I mean, having youth programs, also the touchy topic, and you brought this up, businesses and civil society, or for-profit and non-profit, bringing these together. And this very thin line you have to walk there, with people turning away because they're upset because businesses are invited. And then on the other hand, you're right. I mean, if you want to do anything, you have to have some people involved who actually have funds and who actually do a lot of things in the city and who cause a lot of the pollution and a lot of the greenhouse gas emissions. So really, really, I think something that's, of course, maybe potentially more dramatic in Detroit than in other places, but still relevant in all cities and everywhere. And then also the very important link that you brought up, the health, and where you link climate, health, and environmental justice, basically bridging this and seeing how certain impacts affect certain people more than others, and how this is really not an egalitarian pressure or threat, but this is really hitting the most vulnerable most, and also then affecting, like if children have asthma, they're not going to school maybe as often as other kids, so they fall behind maybe, so they have, you know, it's a whole pathway that's already set in early childhood. And I think lastly, where I can really connect and really see that this is a great approach is with the inclusive planning process, where you really bring all the stakeholders together. So this is really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the next steps also. This was just a primer basically, and it's of course always exciting to see what's happening next. So I want to open this up now for questions, but before we do the actual question session, I wanted to start off the Q&A with two polls, real quick polls, and I would ask everybody to just basically answer the polls as quickly as possible. And I think I will start with this one first. It's a very basic poll, and it's just asking you, and you come from different cities, so this is interesting to see, and we can talk about it later more. Does your city take climate change into account in planning? And you can answer now. I see about half of you have voted. I'll leave this on for a few more seconds, and we'll close the poll in 5 seconds, and then we just see what we have there. Okay, that's it. And here we see the results, and I hope that's, well, it's interesting to see only 20%, so a minority says really that the city where you live takes climate change into account in their planning. And 60% say plainly no, and again 20% say somewhat. So this is, I think, well, first of all, it's concerns me a little bit to see that, but then also it shows how important it is to share information about climate change planning and inclusive climate change planning. Now, the next question I have to the group is related directly to the work you're doing here, and especially this nexus. So is environmental justice a relevant concept in your city, meaning not the city you own, but the city you live in? And I would invite all of you to answer this as to your best knowledge. And I see we still don't have 50% of the votes in. Leave it on for a few more seconds and close it now. So here are the results. And I think that's, well, pretty good. I mean, I would say pretty good, considering the rather low level of climate change planning. Environmental justice seems to be quite relevant. 60% say yes, and 20% only say not yet. So I think that's very good. I think it's very interesting to see this diversity. And I've seen already questions. There were hands raised. And I would like to maybe just give the microphone directly to Elan Chabe. I hope I said this right. And I will unmute you so you can ask your question now directly.
Thank you very much. Yes, this is Elan Chabai. I'm in Washington, D.C., but I commute and work in Potsdam, Germany at an Institute for Advanced Sustainability Studies. So this is highly relevant. And I really thank you for this fantastic presentation and even more, the enormously impressive work that you've been doing. It's really exciting. There are 2 points that I wanted to make from that. One, that we are very much focused in the work that I'm doing all over the world on this engagement between academia, business, and the civil society broadly. So I think in that sense that, yes, I know it's hard when you're trying to bring businesses in, for example, and government and so forth, but I think that's exactly what we have to do, and we have to be willing to do the kind of mediated facilitation to make that possible, because otherwise we're separating out stakeholders and we never actually address the complexity of these problems that we have to deal with. Second thing that I wanted to say, and I was a little surprised by this, you never mentioned anything really. You talked about greenhouse gases. However, very much of the issue locally and also the relationship to climate change is also the result of air pollution, and particularly black carbon particles, from whether it's from factories, it's from diesel engines. I mean, there are a whole set of sources. And those are a major factor, not only in the health, which is a big part, but also in the actual effects. And we, for example, published papers in Nature that show that we have to be thinking about both climate change and, I mean, CO2 and air pollution as factors in climate change. And my point is not that what you said is wrong at all, but simply that it might be important to be explicit about that in helping people understand what gets changed, because locally they can't do a lot about the CO2 in their local thing, but the air pollution they may well be able to. We're doing that, for example, with cities in Africa, even in Berlin, etc. And those are, I think, they're easily understood and therefore useful in that sense as well. Anyway, again, thank you very much for this. And I also guess one other thing I will quickly, if I may say, that we are working both on European Commission and on U.S. National Science Foundation and on what's called Belmont Forum, World Integrated Research plans, where we want to be able to work with communities. I run an international alliance on knowledge, learning, and societal change called Classica. K-L-A-S-I-C-A, and we're looking at the issue of collective behavior change toward sustainable futures, and boy, do you have a fabulous example. So I would love to be in touch in the future. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Elan. That was really good. Yeah, Kimberly, do you want to get back to that right away?
Oh, sure. And thank you so much for your comments. And hey, we would love to come to Germany.
Of course. And actually, Kimberly, you can. I want to use this for a little bit of a promotional part here. The POCACITO program is currently accepting applications for a trip to Germany, actually. This year on the topic of climate change adaptation, we will go to the cities of Munich and Essen. Munich, probably most people know by name, Essen maybe less. And in both cities, we will focus really on climate change adaptation and nature restoration. But Next year, again, will be a different topic. Last year, our key topic was energy transition in cities. This year, it's climate change adaptation. Of course, a lot of focus also, just like in Detroit, is on flood control, flooding, and of course, water management and heat islands and heat island effects in cities. So it's, of course, it's different, but the approaches are still interesting, are comparable, and there certainly is some opportunity for knowledge sharing and learning. So if you're interested, and that goes both to you, Kimberly, and to the people online, so you can apply now. It's possible to submit an application until the 6th of March. And I see we have another question here, and it's coming from Annika Brink. Yeah, well, I see you say that actually you reinforce that we should have questions, should be questions, and ask for something, not just be a statement. That's absolutely true, Annika. Nevertheless, I appreciate that we also have participants here from other research projects or from research and academia, and who want to share and make that connection between practitioners and then the research community, because that's also a group that can contribute positively. And I think we see that, Kimberly, with all the collaboration you have with the University of Michigan, how important the role of research and academia can be in the process.
Yes, very true. And I also wanted to address something else the gentleman said, that, you know, being an environmental justice organization, we are certainly concerned about air pollution. And so we believe that addressing climate change has many co-benefits, including reducing levels of pollution in addition to greenhouse gases. And so one of the things that we're doing is Layla's working very closely again with the University of Michigan and our business leaders to develop a sustainability toolkit. That toolkit will not only focus on encouraging businesses to develop green strategies in terms of reducing their energy usage, but also looking at how they reduce other types of pollution that is much more dangerous. And so the idea of the sustainability toolkit is to get every single business, or as many as possible in the city of Detroit, to develop strong sustainability plans.
Excellent. Kimberly, since you mentioned this now, and since I've seen in the list also the big car manufacturers, how is that working? Is that easy, or is that difficult for them to be part of the process, given that the product is not necessarily the most environmentally friendly, to put it nicely?
Well, you know, it's been an interesting process. We really believe in B2B marketing. So although we convene the meeting with business leaders, we also like to see them engage with one another. And they have been very transparent in acknowledging the difficulty of becoming more sustainable, of you know, reducing their carbon footprint. But they understand that that is a challenge. It is a challenge that they must meet. So what we're also looking at are the factories. So not only, you know, are we concerned with diesel pollution, but also the pollution coming from the factories. And so what is it that they can do to develop more, you know, pollution reduction control measures to deal with those issues? But also adaptation is an issue. So what happens when it rains and a factory is no longer able to operate, or if it is extreme heat and something happens with the air conditioning? So talking to them about those type of issues, what happens to a dealership when it floods and all of the cars that are lost or are destroyed. And so there are many connection points that we've been able to talk to them about, and now we're getting ready to really ramp up on how we do this.
Excellent. Well, thank you. We have a question here from Sonrisa Lucero, and I will unmute you, and you can directly ask your question now. I think you're ready to go. Okay, we can't hear you quite yet. If you want to, you can also type in your question in either the chat box or the questions area. If your microphone does work, you can of course ask it also verbally. If I may start saying simply that you work for the Sustainability Office in Denver, Colorado, so great to have you here. And I think you said you will type the question, so I wait for you to type it in real quick, and then I'll read it, and then Kimberly and Leila can answer it. So you say, so you're very impressed that you wrote your own plan for climate change adaptation and mitigation. And now let's see what the questions are. And the first question is, so is the question that if they wrote it, or is the question coming after that? Let's see. Oh, here it is. The question is, what type of indicators are you using for social aspects of the triple bottom line? So that's a very good question. You mentioned that you kind of went through what's already available out in the world and picked the best approaches. So Kimberly, I think that's a question directly for you, or Leila, or both of you. And you can also say that you'll send that information later in more detail. That's of course fine too.
Okay, we're going to have Leila answer that.
Great.
Okay. Oh, hey everyone. So I'm Leila. So when we are referring to the triple bottom line, it's the people, planet, profit, I guess, is the quickest way to think about it. So normally when I'm thinking about the indicators for people, and maybe you can kind of put more of a business lens on this, but we're thinking about well, there are two related things. So there's two ways to think about it. If you're thinking about it in a health framework, it could be the social determinants of health, or like upstream factors that affect health. Or additionally, we can think about the indicators that go into generic adaptive capacity, and that's a frame that I'm more used to using. And a lot of those indicators, just to name a few, would be, for example, levels of education, levels of unemployment, access to a vehicle, things like that. In terms of the triple bottom line and the business sustainability aspect of it, I think you're getting at something a little bit more specific, but my first thought would be that if a business is working towards the triple bottom line, you're going to see an improvement in the indicators that I just named. So we should hope that they are perhaps hiring locally, or making sure to reduce the emissions that also contribute to asthma and things like that, just as examples. I'm not sure if I've answered completely, but that's kind of what I heard in your question.
Well, thank you, Leila, and I'm pretty sure that there's a lot more to that, but I think as a starting point, that was really good. And I also encourage, of course, everybody to keep asking and discussing these topics later after the webinar. We're coming close to the end. We have one more question from Lynn Strickland, and I'll open your microphone right away. Just saying, if you want to discuss some of these issues, you can, of course, email Leila and Kimberly. You can also join our LinkedIn group if you are on LinkedIn, and discuss there with us. Lynn, the microphone is open, and you can ask your question now.
I just wanted to know if the slideshow is going to be available online.
Yes, indeed. The whole webinar is being recorded and will be available online, both on our actually on our YouTube channel, and then also you will all receive, since you registered through the GoToWebinar software, you will get an automated email once the recording is available with a link to the recording directly from the GoToWebinar software.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for asking, and it's very good. So anybody who missed this, or if you want to share this with anybody, you can. And of course, you can also then invite others to join us for the following webinars. So, Sunrisa is answering that this was very helpful, and she is in the mayor's office and looking for ways to measure how city efforts would impact the social part of the triple bottom line. So I see there that there's a lot of actually very, very specific follow-up questions, and I would really recommend, Sunrisa, that we have maybe a follow-up call with Leila and Kimberly, and maybe we can host this. I'm glad to, I would be happy to host this anytime. So let's email about this. I also see a question or comment from Cecilia Floco. She says, thank you, and great topic and approach involving community, private sector, and academia. Hope to see discussions in the LinkedIn group. All the best. And Sunrisa is asking for a link to the climate action plan. So yes, we will definitely post that, and probably with the video we can post the link to the climate action plan once it's there. Okay, thank you all. We're already at the end of our time. Leila and Kimberly, do you want to say like a last final word to the group? Keep it short, less than 30 seconds if possible. Any final comments?
None from me, except just to say thank you. It was good talking with you today.
Well, thank you, Leila. Kimberly, any final thoughts or comments?
Well, I would just say that in order to really be effective in climate planning, to please use an inclusive process. Please make sure that you have the community involved, and make sure that you involve various sectors of the community. Don't assume that you know what they want, but actually ask them what they want and talk to them, learn their communities, learn their struggles, and that is the way that you will be able to build trust and get people from various sectors. And don't wait to the last minute to do it, whether it's the business sector, it's residents, it's the public health sector, it's the municipal sector. And so just be very thoughtful and very intentional about your work. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk today.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Leila. Thank you also to all of you who attended the webinar and for your questions and comments. And I hope to be in touch soon again. We will circulate the video afterwards, and you will then also be able to, of course, follow up with questions. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you then at our next webinar in March. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.